So we got some loops going on. I've been thinking about how to do live performances, something I don't do as much as I should, and one of the things that I struggled with was basically bringing the studio, like I'm used to working with lots of different bits of kit and then trying to like translate that into like one box, because I'm not lugging everything around, is quite difficult. Just trying to get the right characteristics and the behaviors, the reasons why you buy or use extra bits of equipment, and then trying to like sample them, or trying to find other reasons or other methods, I should say, to sort of translate into another box is just really counterintuitive. So I've been trying to work out how to sort of solve this problem, or at least kind of get closer to solving this problem. I kind of had this thought kind of based on some previous videos, and the one of the Orbital members uses this technique where they sample a filter sweep. So you just hold a note down, sweep from the low pass filter or whatever you want to do from, but in the case of, in this example, it's like a open filter and then just sweep it down to low pass, to the closed filter, and this kind of gives you like almost like an impulse, for those of you who do like reverb kind of impulse reading, like a snapshot of like a lot of information in one sort of short space, and then using the starter marker of your sample to just kind of do a pseudo filter. So like here, for example, if let me turn some of this down. Yeah, look at this, like 4 layers. What's going on? So like this one just played at this point is just the bass. And then we open it or move the start marker to this beginning. You get the open filter. So the difference of doing it this way to doing, and this is the thing that clicked for me this morning, other than just a kind of fun technique that I think originally, because the Akai sampler kind of behaves differently on the way it triggers its filters. Other than that, like, what's the reason to really do this? And it suddenly dawned on me with kind of like impulse reverbs that the characteristics of why you might use a particular piece of equipment, why you might use like your Korg synth, or why you might use your Roland synth, or your plugins, or whatever, is kind of captured. So like this is, I forget which this one is, probably, I think this is the Korg MS20. So you've got like an MS20 style bass, but then you've got the movement of that filter. So obviously, like, you can kind of put the Rytm's own filter in there, which I've got on there just to kind of sharpen it up a bit, because it's got loads of nice hiss there. But I mean I like this hiss. Yeah, that's definitely the MS20. really, really nasty. So you've kind of got that in a sample, which that means like like you can kind of dial in the characteristics. You can use the characteristics of the sound or the sample that you've taken from that synth, and then dial in how it sits with the rest of the stuff if you're going to use other layers. So I mean, all I've got is just 4 different synthesizers that I've sampled, like I've done a sweep on, and then I've just kind of copied the pattern over and just changed the step length just to kind of get a sense of like how they might behave, and also just going through the process of like what setting do you use, because that's obviously not, that MS20 is obviously not like a flat, you know, waveform, and I think there's like some balancing of the oscillators. I think there's a ring mod in there and maybe some white noise or something. So what I was kind of doing was sending out MIDI data from the rhythm to one of the synths, and then just, you know, running it on the audio in of the rhythm, getting a pattern that kind of sounds roughly right, and then sort of playing around with the filter on the synthesizer to kind of think, oh, okay, this probably fits, and then sampling, you know, stopping the sequencer, sampling just pressing a note down and doing a sweep, and then putting the sample in, replacing the MIDI out with the internal sample, and it obviously sounds different, but you've got some kind of similarities there. So it's sort of a bit of a, as opposed to kind of completely working blind or deaf, and just sampling and then experimenting, you've kind of got this like stepping stone, which I feel incorporates the studio a bit more without and brings that quality into the one box. And I kind of, and it sounds interesting, I'm like, oh, that is the MS20. So the other stuff I've got in here, I forget what I put the so the sequences are really similar. The only thing I've done differently, it's worth mentioning, the only thing I've done differently is, you can see I've just changed the lengths of each of the sequence, so they're running, you know, the overall length is just, so you know, infinite, so you've got this kind of polyrhythm thing going on. The reason I mention that is because you can already hear how different the crackle. You already know how to hear how different this sounds to the MS20. So this is the Arp Odyssey, or the Carp Odyssey, if people call it that. Yeah, really nice. So the Arp Odyssey is kind of known for this sort of really tight bass sound, and you can kind of hear it already. It's just got a lot more sort of, it feels like it's in the middle somehow, just really tight and centered. So and then I've got I forget what I did. I think it's like some because it does lots of crazy ring mod stuff and sync stuff. I think I used the sync on the sweep. So yeah, a bit more crazy, that one. Maybe not as usable, but there's some flexibility there. So I think I'd try some different stuff that's a bit more extreme, maybe on those higher bits. It's almost like Sawtooth, a bit harder sounding, almost percussive like. So, you know, and again, I've got some basic filters on there, the internal filter, just to kind of tame it down, because it's a lot more aggressive. The other cool thing is, I mentioned in a previous video that because the bass is at the end of the sample, because I did think about sweeping from bass up to high, but I think this way round works better, sweeping down, because you're always kind of ending in bass, and you can have just like, I've sustained this bass area, so there's plenty of space there to move this marker, which is helpful if you're doing like keyboard tracking, so the marker doesn't get like you know, see it moving around, it doesn't get like, doesn't fall off the end or goes into a blank space. But the interesting thing about having the bass at the end is you've got this, because it's a sample, you've got this clicking effect, so you've got like high frequency content and low frequency without really having to do anything. So you've got the hiss if your sound's got hiss on it, but you've also got the click where the bass is, you know, the 0 point's not hitting on the start point, which I think is really nice because it adds that percussive kind of quality to it. And just one dial move. And we got something else, which is really neat. The other thing, what else have I got in here? I think that was this one we'd done, didn't we? Oh no, this is the 101. So different bass again, which is obviously like maybe a slightly higher pitch or something, but So I felt that one really shows off, like it sounds like a 101. So like 101, like that's got like some LFO modulation on the pulse width, and then I think there's like it's slightly quieter than the Sawtooth. So you've kind of got that. The Sawtooth on the 101's really like quite strong, and the sort of square and the pulse width are just a bit more subdued. They're still really heavy, but so if you can kind of balance that, you get the presence with some kind of interesting qualities. You've got this almost like, you know, sort of Hoover rave kind of, you know the deal. Pick up that resonance in the middle, which is really nice. You can kind of play around with just a starter, and you've got starter marker, and you've got like a 101 quality. So I think that shows that you can probably have more interesting textures, you know, in the higher end, like as the filter's open, than you do in the low end. So you don't even have to do just a simple sweep. Like some of them I was trying to kind of maybe move 2 parameters at the same time, just to kind of get the bottom end really interesting and the top end really interesting on the sweep. Because then you've got like, you know, like that. This one I was really pleased with. Like, I mean, I didn't do many of these. I just went one go and then tried it. With the Arp, I had to try a few different ones, but the 101 was just straight away whack it through. It sounded good. Just exciting to use all of a sudden, because it's just like that solid sample. The other interesting thing about that, considering a live set, is that it's sort of the characteristics are set, but the sample is just a sort of capture of a sweep as opposed to a whole loop, right? So you could use this sort of snapshot to do other sequences, and you've kind of got the characteristics of, you know, if someone's heard a previous set, they could be like, oh, that sounds kind of similar, but it's different. And you're only basically just using, you know, maybe the effects are different, or maybe the sequences are different, but your sample's still set, you know. So I thought that was quite a nice way of potentially creating some variation, and not having to do much work, which I love. So the other one, I forget what I've got in here. What's this one? I think we heard this one, didn't we? Did we hear this one? Yeah, that's the MS20. Does sound good. And this was the Prophet 5. So I think from memory. Yeah, so like a straight away a more complex sound, and I've got this sort of filter setting on it, so just to kind of keep the bottom end, but also have the flexibility of the top end without it getting too crazy on either. So this is the thing. This is the first one I did. We've got this ending, right? It's falling off the end, so that's why you want that like constant bass at the end, just to give yourself some space. Well, I mean, you know, you do what you want, but for me that's going to be quite useful. I do like these gaps, but I'm trying to think of more like, you know, how I can kind of take a process and kind of apply this to lots of things. Obviously, when it comes to this, it's like, does it sound good is all that really matters. But so it's probably worth mentioning, you can see the start marker moving around a bit. So I've got like, you know, a keyboard tracking style. So like certain notes are going to be brighter or further forward on the starter markers on the sample than lower notes, based on, you know, me basically programming that in. There is a video that explains how to do that, so I'm not going to keep going on about it, but this is why it's moving around a bit. But ideally it's just in a kind of small area. And this one I thought, because the Prophet's quite a beast of a machine, it's got lots of flexibility to it, so I figured, oh well, I'll try and see how varied the sound can be just in one sweep, and then how usable it is. So I don't know, we'll see. And think I set this one on the quick performance, so so here comes the limit, right? So I wanted you can just have this assigned to one thing, so I don't want to have all the filters of every single bloody sample moving on one dial. So I know some of you mentioned in the comments a few times, like, why do you not use controllers? So here's a good reason why I might need to invest in one with the zero amount of money I have in my bank account. But that having the control for start markers on all those little layers could be quite useful. That is if they're all running at the same time. I'm wondering whether for a live sets kind of idea, I like focusing on one sound and then really exploring that and then moving to another sound if I have to. So maybe I don't need to do it, but I don't know, we'll see. I need to do like a proper run through and see how it works. But yeah, let's explore this one a bit because I thought it was quite interesting. So there you get the clicks disappear because the filter's like after the sample. So this is really nice to kind of have both filters, like the pseudo filter and the actual filter, to control some qualities that you don't have to put in, i.e. the clicks. Yeah, I'm much more of a fan of like one layer. You can hear it's just like loads and loads of stuff going on. So I think lots of things at the same time. I mean, I don't know, maybe it sounded good to you, but it sounds really messy. But it's interesting to hear, just with some subtle rhythm, volume changes, how the whole thing kind of moves. That was kind of what I was trying to explore. Thinking about transitions and you know, like hearing how the compressor handles lots of bass, not too great, and how the top ends. But yeah, I think it's promising though. It's a promising direction, even if just using one sound, or even maybe many variations of one sound. Maybe it's like, you know, the Arp or the 101 or something, but like multiple instances. So maybe you have like a slightly different waveform sweep on one track to the other one, and so you can kind of get these interesting textures. Maybe a sweep that works better on high notes to one that works better on low notes, that kind of idea. Introducing the white noise from some of the synths, because they've all got their own unique one. So yeah, I don't know, pretty interesting. I don't know what you think. Worth trying. I'm going to put obviously, as always, the project will be in the description. The samples will come with it. I think there might be probably a few others in there. There was a few ARP ones, so maybe I'll keep them in there. There's some other waveforms I think from before, so I'll keep that in there. But yeah, don't know. Have a play around, and if you've got any ideas for a simple live set kind of setup, then yeah, kind of show me basically. Cool. That's it. Nice one. Cheers.